a wet ring on the ceiling tile, a puddle on the floor under the indoor unit, a slow, steady drip from the air vent during the hottest week of summer. The air conditioner is still running, the house is still cool, but somewhere inside the system, water is going where it isn't supposed to go. And the longer you ignore it, the bigger the stain on the ceiling gets. So here's the question worth asking. Where is this water actually coming from? Why does an electrical appliance, bolted to the wall, plugged into the grid, produce water at all? And how is it that the same machine that's working perfectly in every other way can quietly leak gallons of water into your living room without ever triggering an alarm? Here's the first thing most people get wrong. They assume a leaking air conditioner has a leak, a crack somewhere, a broken pipe, a failed seal. That's the intuition. It just happens to be wrong almost every time. Your air conditioner isn't leaking because something is broken. It's leaking because the system that normally collects and removes water is being overwhelmed. The water itself is supposed to be there. It has been there every minute the AC has been running for as long as you've owned the house. You just never noticed because the system was carrying it away successfully. To understand the leak, you have to understand where the water comes from in the first place. The air in your house, even when it doesn't feel humid, is full of invisible water vapor. On a warm summer day, the air in a typical living room can hold the equivalent of several glasses of water in vapor form. Your air conditioner doesn't just cool that air, it pulls the moisture out of it. As warm air blows across the cold evaporator coil inside the indoor unit, the water vapor condenses onto the metal exactly the way droplets form on the outside of a cold glass of iced tea. That condensation drips off the coil into a sloped tray underneath called the drain pan. From the drain pan, the water runs through a small PVC pipe, the condensate drain line, and exits either outside your house or into your plumbing. This is happening continuously. A typical residential AC can pull 5 to 20 gallons of water out of your home's air every day during humid weather. 20 gallons. That's a lot of water moving through a small plastic pipe you've probably never looked at. Quick favor before we keep going. If you've ever wondered about the engineering hiding inside the appliances you depend on daily, hit that subscribe button. We dig into the science behind the systems, quietly keeping things working that you've never had to think about. Now, back to the leak. So if your AC is leaking, the question isn't where the water is coming from. The question is where it's getting stuck on its way out. There are roughly 5 things that can go wrong, and they all come down to the same fundamental problem. Water that's supposed to leave is being blocked. The most common culprit by far is a clogged condensate drain line, that little PVC pipe under your indoor unit. Inside that pipe, conditions are perfect for algae and mold to grow. It's dark, it's wet, it's slightly warm. Bacteria attach themselves to the inside walls. They multiply. They form a slimy biofilm that slowly narrows the pipe. Add a little dust from the air handler and some dirt that drifts in from the outdoor end of the pipe, and within a few seasons, that drain line is partially or completely blocked. The water has nowhere to go. It backs up into the drain pan, overflows the edge, and starts dripping wherever gravity sends it, usually onto your floor, your ceiling, or your air handler's electronics. The second cause is a frozen evaporator coil. This one sounds counterintuitive. How does ice cause a water leak? But here's the part that should genuinely surprise you. The same coil that's pulling moisture out of your air, if something goes wrong, can get so cold that the moisture doesn't just condense. It freezes. A solid block of ice forms on the coil. While the ice is there, the AC produces almost no useful cooling because no air can pass through the frozen fins. Then, the moment you turn the unit off or it cycles down at night, all that ice melts at once. A frozen evaporator coil can easily produce more meltwater in 20 minutes than the drain pan was designed to handle in an hour. The pan overflows. The water finds its way out wherever it can. So what causes the coil to freeze? 3 things usually. A dirty air filter blocks airflow over the coil, so the coil can't absorb enough heat to stay above freezing. A low refrigerant level lowers the pressure inside the system, which makes the coil even colder than it should be. Or a dirty coil itself, layered in dust, can't transfer heat to the air efficiently. Any of the 3, and you get ice, then meltwater, then a leak. The third cause is a broken or cracked drain pan. Drain pans on older units, after 12 or 15 years of constant moisture exposure, can rust through if they're metal or crack if they're plastic. Once there's even a small hole in the bottom of the pan, water exits long before it ever reaches the drain line. You don't see the hole, you only see the leak. Replacement is usually the only fix. The fourth cause is a failed condensate pump. If your indoor AC unit is in a basement or somewhere lower than the outdoor drain, the water can't flow downhill on its own. A small electric pump in the drain pan pushes the water uphill and outside. When the pump fails, often because of a clogged float switch, a burned ours, oot motor, or a power issue, the pump stops moving water. The pan fills up. It overflows. The fifth cause, which most homeowners don't think about, is bad installation. An AC unit that wasn't perfectly level when it was mounted can tilt water away from the drain instead of toward it. A drain line that wasn't sloped properly or that was routed with a U-shape that traps air can stop carrying water. Sometimes the leak isn't really a malfunction. It's the consequence of a 15-minute mistake made by an installer years ago. Here's the part that should also surprise you. Modern air conditioners have a safety feature built specifically for this problem. It's called a float switch. A small plastic device sits in or beside the drain pan. When the water level rises higher than it should, a tiny floating arm lifts. That triggers a switch. The switch tells the AC to shut itself off. The idea is that you'd rather lose your cooling for a few hours than have water damage in your ceiling. If your AC suddenly stops working in hot weather but you can't find anything obviously wrong, a tripped float switch from a partially clogged drain line is one of the most common reasons. Clear the drain. Drain the pan. The AC starts back up. You've been encountering versions of this same engineering trap in other places without realizing it. Your dehumidifier, a small AC by another name. It produces water by the gallon and either drains it or holds it in a bucket you have to empty. Your refrigerator. Modern fridges have a defrost cycle that produces meltwater, which runs down to an evaporation tray near the compressor where it boils off into the room. When that tray cracks, the leak shows up under your fridge. The condensation under your car windshield on a humid morning. Same physics. Vapor meeting cold metal. Any window AC unit where you can sometimes see water dripping from the back, that's the system working correctly. Now for the honest trade-off. There's no way to design around this. As long as air conditioners are pulling moisture out of indoor air, they will produce condensate. As long as condensate is produced, it has to go somewhere. And as long as drain lines exist, they can clog. The best you can do is annual maintenance. A technician can vacuum the drain line clear, replace a worn float switch, inspect the pan for cracks, check refrigerant levels. None of this is dramatic engineering. It's just keeping a 20-gallon per day water removal system from getting clogged. If you ignore a leak long enough, the consequences get expensive. Drywall damage, mold inside the ceiling, corroded electronics in the air handler, insurance claims. The leak itself is small. The damage that follows can be thousands of dollars. So here's where you land. The water dripping from your ceiling isn't a malfunction in the cooling system. It's a perfectly working cooling system whose drainage system has failed. The AC is doing exactly what it's been doing all summer, pulling vapor out of the air, condensing it onto a cold coil, dripping it into a pan. The breakdown is happening downstream, in the pipe that was supposed to carry that water out of your house and into the world. If you think air conditioners are weirder than they look, wait until we get into why a perfectly working AC suddenly starts blowing warm air on the hottest day of the year. Because the reason has almost nothing to do with the refrigerant or the compressor. It has to do with a single sensor, the size of a pencil eraser, that's been quietly monitoring something nobody ever thinks about, and that decides on its own when the entire system should give up